One.
2-1. 2-1, does that mean we're
You're on, you're live.
Action.
All right, we'll call this meeting of the Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals in session. We're quasi judicial. Well, I'm not sure we need to do this because each case is individually done. What is
Well, you're talking to the people for right now.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we'll go through part of it anyway. We're appointed by the commissioners, we serve at their pleasure. We receive a stipend, some take it, some don't. We really do it out of I don't know why we do it, why do we? It's a civic duty, we try to help. Anyway, the quasi judicial hearing, we do take sworn testimony. We have a full board this evening, so we'll make a decision this evening on the 3 cases that are before us. Most likely, however, do we have 10 days to do that, working days. If you don't like our decision, you can appeal to the court, district court, or civil court, which one? Circuit court,
Circuit.
yeah.
Wow, how long's he been doing?
What's that? You want to do this? Anyway, turn your cell phones off. We'll start with the reading of the notice for each case. We've kind of changed the way we do things. We take each case individually. We will have discussions on the case right after the case, so we can let the appellant know one way or another, most likely what's going on, unless some other decisions arrived at. It is sworn testimony, I do swear you in. And the appellant will present their case. Any person in favor can talk, any opposition can then talk, and then the appellant can sum up, and we'll make a decision soon after that. With that, let's start with our first case.
First case is submitted by Jason and Mary Borghese for a special exception permit for a single-family home, 6-bedroom transient vacation rental. The property is located at 587 Waterfront Greens Drive, tax map 59, parcel 611, lot 82, grid 8, and is zoned Lake Residential 1. And we have Lee Miller here from Rayleigh Realty Vacations to present the case for the Borgheses.
Okay, thank you guys. All right, so this property is in Waterfront Greens. Currently, when
One thing.
Can you swear me in?
We need to swear you in. You've been sworn in a million times, but I guess we're doing it every time. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give this application for a special exception before the Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals, truth, the whole truth, sir, you swear or affirm?
I do.
And we have your name and address. Okay.
All right, so currently, this property currently runs as a 4-bedroom, so it's licensed for TDRU as a 4-bedroom. The owners have recently finished the lower level, adding 2 more bedrooms, so we're applying for special exception now. Sprinkler system has been installed, that was installed with the initial build. I believe you've received fire marshal approval, or,
Not yet on the basement, but we will,
okay.
that will be part of the UNO.
Okay, so parking has been submitted through on the plat, you'll have a copy of that, so it does have 6 parking spaces available. We don't perceive that there's gonna be any impact on property values in that community. There are already a good number of rentals in Waterfront Green, so everything should be fine. The property's not going to be used for weddings or any special events. There's no outside speakers, no outside lighting. I was by the property today, and the property boundaries do have trees on each side, those to the left and right, so you can clearly tell where the property boundaries are located. Let's see. I think that's all I got for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know.
Question, gentlemen?
No, sir. Nothing for me. 19 of them there already. Yeah.
Yeah,
Make
this
it
is,
even 20.
this is just another one of the many that are there. And there's nobody to speak in opposition. So, I guess we'll conclude and make a decision here now.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion on this?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
I'll second it.
Any, special, conditions or any further discussion?
I just have a question of Bruce Metz. Bruce, did we get any letters on this opposing?
We did not.
Okay, I didn't think we would, but I just wanted to ask the question. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, please move on.
That's good question. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go, approved.
Thanks for coming in, Lee.
Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it. I'll see you next month.
You might not wanna think about it.
Yeah, you don't want to go there.
We got a big one next month.
Would you please? Thank you.
You want this entire package back, boss?
You can just throw it in the corner when
Is
you're
this-
done with each case and I'll throw
Okay.
them up. That one you'll probably need.
Is this?
That's the-
Oh, this is the other one, this is, okay, gotcha. Focus.
No, they moved it back. That's,
Well, I had filed my estimated tax anyway. Which one did it show out here? What's the number on this?
490.
490.
Yes, yes, and yes, and yes. Let me know if I passed.
We ought to call Waterfront Greens TDRU land. That's what it is.
It really is.
19 on the list. So that's 20.
Demarays used to call it Tyvekistan from all the Tyvek that used to be on. Good.
Hey, Bob,
Yes, sir.
you said there were no snowflakes down in Florida?
Not where I was. Well, it depends on your definition of snowflakes too.
Now he's up to speed.
There you go.
Extra things that came in on this one.
Later on.
Late after I sent her packages. Couple letters.
All right, we'll read those in.
Lovely.
How many people are gonna be here tonight for this? Do you know, Bruce?
Probably about 6 or 8. If you wanna pass that down, I think you already saw that, Bruce, but I think Bob and Bill and then didn't. Look, hello, Mr.
Good.
I will.
Most of you again. I think the last time we were here, we had one, we now have two. So keep them quiet.
This person has there. That's tiny. It's really good. My garage is bigger.
They'll be here shortly. Looks like a family setting.
Hey, how are you, Rich?
How's everybody?
Like you-
Good.
Been a while.
Truly has.
I don't know, looks like it's been wintering pretty good there.
Yeah. That is.
You can come into this aisle and you can move the paper so you can sit beside each other. you see anyone else?
You do not see anyone else in the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this second case is submitted by Stuart and Lizette Fox for a variance to allow the construction of a single-family residence and a deck to within 5 feet of the rear. The property line is located along Marsh Hill Road, tax map 50, parcels 326 and 821, grid 1, and is zoned LR1. And I believe they have purchased a buy down on that lot.
That's correct.
Thank you. And who is, Stuart Fox is going to present the case for himself.
All right, we received correspondence. Want to go ahead and read that into
We've received several letters. And I'm not going to read the letter for the Wathens because they're going to present their own case. So we have a letter from Teresa, I'm sorry, wrong page. Felton McGee, owner of 793 Marsh Hill Road. I wanted to send a brief note indicating my opposition to the zoning variance request submitted by Stuart and Lizette Fox for the property shown as noted. I understand there's a hearing scheduled for I won't be able to attend. However, it is my intention to provide a more formal, which I've provided to the board, and they've read through that. We have another from Teresa Johnson, owner of 844 Marsh Hill Road, McHenry, Maryland. Home is directly across the street from the applicant's proposed dwelling. We fell in love with this area because of the perfect balance of the preserved natural scenery and the size of dwellings erected have protected the integrity of this beautiful undisturbed scenery. Deep Creek Lake development is trending in the wrong direction. Homes are becoming larger, traffic has increased, and along with that, more and more speeding vehicles. There are no sidewalks for pedestrians. Marsh Hill Road isn't a good fit for a large, enormous home. The integrity of undisturbed land, scenery, privacy is in great jeopardy. The applicant's proposed building plans are a 6-bedroom home with the proposed square footage of 5,000 square feet. I categorize this home equivalent to a mini hotel. Marsh Hill Road is not the ideal location for a mini hotel. After careful consideration, we strongly oppose granting this variance. A home of this magnitude will negatively affect our tranquil surroundings and privacy that we have enjoyed for many years. We urge the board to decline the request for the variance and applicants to reduce the size of the proposed dwellings to coincide with surrounding homes. And then that's the Wathens. And that's it.
that include the ones that are in the package that we have. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty,
All right, I believe you guys all have a copy of the letter, but just to get it on the record.
hang on a second. Please, I got to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this application for a variance before the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals, the truth, the whole truth, so you swear or affirm?
Yes,
And name and address for the record?
Stuart Fox, 910 North Alfred Street, Alexander, Virginia.
Okay, now go ahead.
All right. Thank you for considering our variance request for lots 3 and 4 on Marshall Road, McHenry, Maryland. Lot 3 and Lot 4 are adjacent lots located in the LR1 zoning district, and each is 60 feet wide by 80 feet long for a total area of 4,800 square feet. Because building on each individual lot using the LR1 standard setbacks is impossible, and after carefully considering feedback from county staff, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and adjacent neighbors, we are proposing a lot consolidation in conjunction with applying for a variance to build a viable home on these vacant lots. Subsequent to our prior hearing in September 2020, we have spent the last few months going over various options for these lots with our team of builders, surveyors, engineers, and architects. We evaluated several sets of plans pursuant to Board of Zoning Appeals comments to fit the home within a reduced building envelope, as well as county staff comments to consider combining the lots to gain a larger building envelope with a reduced number of homes. Based on careful consideration and multiple conversations with our team, we have decided to propose combining the lots to reduce the number of homes and allow for larger setbacks on each home. In order to effectuate these plans, we are requesting a variance pursuant to section 157.165E of the zoning ordinance to build a structure and deck within 5 feet of the rear line. By combining these 3 lots into 2, we can no longer apply for the town residential zone variance pursuant to 157.65F1B, that's a mouthful, of the zoning ordinance, and thus our front yard setback will be 40 feet and our side yard setbacks will be 15 feet each. We are staying a minimum feet of 5 feet from the rear line to limit disruptions to any neighbors. Lots 3 and 4 are lakefront lots that each have acquired and apprehended, interest in additional land from the state of Maryland, commonly known as the buy-down parcel. The granting of this request would not be contrary to public interest. The granting of the variance would be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the Deep Creek Lake Watershed Ordinance. The proposed home would not adversely affect the adjoining property owner's use or enjoyment of their property, would not impair adequate light and air to the adjacent properties, and would not impair views from the adjacent properties or otherwise be detrimental to the public welfare. The proposed improvements are consistent with the permitted uses in the Lake Residential Zoning District and do not propose any uses not currently permitted. The proposed structure will not be erected closer to 100 feet to the high water line of 2,462 feet, and the size and nature of the proposed home is consistent to other nearby homes in the LR1 district pursuant to 157.165F2E. With that, I had a few other comments that would allow. I first wanted to hit practical difficulty, hardship, and need. In terms of need, these are, again, 80-foot by 60 lots. So using the standard 40-foot front yard and 40-foot rear yard setbacks, we can literally build 0 homes. So a variance is required to build anything. Without a variance, we just can't build anything. These are zoned for residential. I believe you gentlemen have all seen the lots. They are very, very steep. They are very, very small, and they are very close to the road. I personally believe that that hardship and practical difficulty is probably a big part of the reason that nobody has ever attempted to build on these homes. These are challenging lots. They're small, and they are very, very steep. I did have one quick question. I don't believe there is a house across the street. Could you give me that address of the house that said they're across the street? Because to the best of my knowledge, there's not a house across the street.
I think it's set down from it a bit.
Okay.
Was it Teresa Jones? 844?
Okay. So 844 is not on my list. I know many comments have been about the size and scale of this house. I did a little bit of pulling Maryland records from SDAT. And I only stayed on Marshall Road on the lakefront, so only homes on the lakefront of Marshall Drive, and I went no more than 1 mile away from our house. In total, by my count, it's only about 60 homes. Of those 60 homes, 18 are greater than 4,000 square feet, 7 are greater than 5,000 square feet, 3 are greater than 6,000 square feet. Believe it or not, one is 7,760 square feet. And again, this is not the whole lake, this is 1 mile only on the lakefront, 1 mile north and 1 mile south. So, I mean, clearly there would appear to be a precedent set for homes, not only in the size and scale that we are proposing, but quite a bit larger too. I know I was a bit surprised when I saw that 7,760. Lastly, I just wanted to make reference to our community outreach. I'm certainly disappointed to hear the comments that you read. We did reach out to all of our neighbors. We did try to answer all of their questions. And we did ask all of them for feedback. We did not receive any feedback. We received quite a few questions, quite a few requests for plans. Nobody said, hey, we'd really like to see you do X, we'd really like to see you do Y. Had somebody asked us, had somebody been willing to engage or give us some feedback, we would have been more than happy to incorporate it. We did incorporate feedback from the last meeting asking us to pull the house back. So in the prior meeting, we were going within 1 feet of the line. It is now within 5 feet. So we did try to pull it back, and we would have pulled it back further, but we are now limited by the 40-foot, whereas the front yard was within 20 feet. And we still obviously need room for parking. Lastly, I just wanted to note that while this house is slightly larger, it's about 25% larger. The lot is actually 50% larger. So by combining the two lots and doing a 25% larger home and a 50% larger lot, we do have significantly larger setbacks on all 4 sides. So it was the prior variance request was 10 feet, it's now 15 on each side. The prior request was 20 feet in the front, it's now 40, and it was 1 in the rear, and it's now 5. Just going through my mental list. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I do have a list of those homes if you would like to see them.
5,000.
Go ahead.
5,000 is the total square footage of it?
Yes.
You know what the footprint of it is?
I should.
It should be on the blueprints, I believe.
I didn't see that.
The setbacks are 540, so, and it's 90 total, so that should leave 45 by 40? I did my math right? I might have done my math wrong. I want to say it's about 1,200 per floor.
I have 35 from front to rear, but not oh, wait a minute. We've got, basically 60 feet wide,
60 feet wide. By
35.
30 feet wide, or long. 60 by 30, that sounds right.
Yeah, including the terrace, it's 35.
Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody here to speak in favor of this proposal? In opposition? Alrighty, come on up, we'll swear you in. We can do both of you, are you both gonna speak?
Yeah, I know.
Do solemnly swear affirm the truth, jeez, solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this application for variance for the Deep Creek Watershed Board of Zoning Appeals, the truth, the whole truth, so you swear affirm.
I do.
And both of us did not certify that they do, and name and address for the records.
Richard Wathen and Nancy Collins, 1306 36th Street, Washington DC, 20007.
And your home
Our
here?
home here is 801 Marsh Hill Road, which is the property right next to the proposed property,
To the left side.
to the left side, to the north side.
From the road,
Yeah,
okay.
from the road.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys directly. You guys have seen the letter, and I won't read the whole thing, but we spent a lot of time looking at it, and, you know, we appreciate that the, you know, the comments we got from the last hearing, and that you guys are, you know, inviting us back to talk about this one. It is true that there's been some changes to the plan, and we understand that the combination of the second of the two, you know, basically making the 3 lots into 2 was part of what the discussion was. Our challenge is, it doesn't really address some of the fundamental things that we brought up at the last meeting. And in some ways, it's made some things worse, frankly. First off, is our estimate, and, you know, none of the drawings, either the previous ones or this one, have included square footage estimates for the house, and that made it kind of tough to compare these things. We did use a surveyor this time. I asked Benchmark Surveying to do some estimates. Their estimate that this is a 5,400 square foot house based on the drawings that were submitted, and the previous estimate was that it was 4,000 square feet. So we think it's 35% bigger. I mean, you know, you can talk about that, but I don't know why the drawing doesn't include that, but it is a bigger house. And it's now been positioned in a way that we have a challenge in the rear, and that it's, you know, 15 feet in front of our house, almost 16 feet in front of our house, and other neighboring houses in the rear. And now it's also going to be pretty dominant in the front part of the house too, because of the way the house has been shifted on the lot from the last time that we reviewed the plan. So, you know, talking about a couple of specific issues, and then I'll kind of address some of the concerns that Mr. Fox had. You know, first is kind of the general question of character of the neighborhood, which is, you know, we went through and looked at the ordinance, and we had counsel at the last meeting, and he pretty much said, you know, the issues are the same, the ordinance questions are the same as they were the last time, which is, you know, the character of the neighborhood. Is this house in the character of the neighborhood and the way that everything else is on the lot? And I submitted to you guys a copy of the county survey that kind of looks at what do houses look like as they relate to the Penelec line, on the buy-down line, and what do they look like in terms of the street. I was also able to print out your aerial survey. Can I give this guy to you?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, I only have one copy, yeah. And I think the key thing here is that it's been extremely consistent in this neighborhood. How houses are positioned on the lots, at least 20 feet back from the Penelec line, the buy-down line, and closer to the street. That is the character of this neighborhood, and it's been that way consistently for 70 years. And that includes houses that have been, you know, built 70 years ago, our house, houses that are under construction today. There's a house that's being built 3 doors down from us that's complying exactly to that sort of character of the neighborhood kind of look and feel. So I think that's the first thing, which is this is to be a very big departure from what you've got in the neighborhood. Second thing is, our reading of the ordinance is that you got to give some consideration to what they call it proportional in size, height, bulk, and character to structures within the general neighborhood. This house doesn't seem consistent with any of that. And I heard the comparisons to other houses, along a mile of Marsh Hill Road. A mile is what makes the difference, right? Because if you go down Marsh Hill Road, past Main Street, West Main Street, and down further, there's some much larger lots. And I had another aerial survey, which might help you see that a little bit too. I was gonna use this later, but I'll show it now. In terms of the character of the neighborhood, there's some much larger lots, much for larger setbacks, totally different look and feel than what we are in the stretch pretty much between the entrance to the Wisp and Main Street. All those houses are pretty consistent, and you can see that in the picture. To compare it to houses that are, within a mile is very different neighborhoods than the neighborhood that this project is being built in. So I think that's the second thing. And then the third thing is, and again, it goes back to the ordinance, which is, does it impede light and views? And I asked the surveyor, our surveyor, to look at the property, look at our property, and look at the property, the proposal, and say, how does it look in proportion to our property? And I sent this to Mr. Metz earlier, we had just finished this, but I don't know if you had a chance to look at this one. That's
We've seen
the,
that one.
that's the rear of the
Yeah,
property.
we've seen that.
You've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah, so what we're gonna see out of the back of our property is 16 feet of this project. And that's also gonna be true, because this is not the first project, it's gonna be the next lot down. I don't know how you build a house next to this house positioned like that unless you also put the next house like that. So our view is gonna be significantly impeded, as is the view of Mr. McGee, who's the neighbor next to us, and as eventually will be the view of Miss Bayshore, who's on the other side of that. No house that I can see on Marsh Hill, and if you look at those, the material I provided, extends that close to the Pennock line. And I understand that before it was 1 foot and now it's 5 foot from the line, but it's still 16.5 feet in front of us and in front of any other house on Marsh Hill. The other challenge is now that the parking lot, the whole house has been shifted. So we've got a parking lot that's actually kind of a double-sized parking lot, a bridge, and you gotta put in retaining walls to hold that parking lot because it is very steep. So you're gonna have to backfill that entire area, and then a bridge, and then the house. That is basically gonna be the front view of our house, the McGee house, the Bayshore house, under this current plan. So, I understand that combining the two lots gave you a bigger building envelope. I think it's been filled. That envelope has been completely filled. So that's the first set of problems. I think the next set of problems is, the size itself, and again, per my point, this house is, to our house, I think I said it's 1.8 times as big as our house, and it's 3.4 times as big as the house next to that, and along this part of Marsh Hill Road, the houses are pretty consistently that size or smaller. There is no house in the neighborhood of Marsh Hill Road that is as big as this house. So I think all that sort of speaks to, and again, this is to Mr. Fox's point about the hardship, right? There are houses being built today on lots this size with the same challenges of topography. My house is like that, our house is like that. The tree house, which is the house next to us, is like that. Pretty much every house in this vicinity of Marsh Hill Road has been faced with the same challenges of small lots and difficult topography, and they've been able to build houses. It's not like there's been undue hardship. They're building a house 3 doors down from us that is conforming to all of these requirements and the norms of what's been done before, and they're able to build that house. That's not like it's impossible to build a house there or build an economically viable house there. It's, that is possible to do. A 5,400 square foot house, to me, does not, that's not the hardship, right? If you say it's a hardship, I can't build a house smaller than that, that's a hardship. That's inconsistent with what's been approved before. Second thing is, it's the minimum variance for reasonable use. Is this house the minimum variance for reasonable use? We're not objecting to houses being built here. We understand that this is a lot, it was for sale. It was actually, why it wasn't sold, it was owned by the same family for decades, the Dryden family for decades. They owned 3 lots, actually originally it was 2 and they turned it into 3 at some point. But they owned that property and they owned the property across the street from it for decades. It was just a family place. They just never seemed to be interested in selling it. Once in a while it would come up on the market and they'd just take it off. But those lots can be built on, right? We know it's possible to build on those lots because our house was built like that. And our house was built 17 years ago. And our house is a perfectly adequate house. It's a big enough house. It's a very comfortable house. It works well on the lake. And that's true of the tree house next to us. That's true of Mr. Schonkweiler's house, which is even smaller, and true of the brand new house they just built next to Mr. Schonkweiler's house. So all of this, in terms of economic hardship and what the minimum variance required to use is, this does not seem consistent with that rule. I think the only other couple points we made in our note was this is going to have to be, and I don't know if this is an issue for the board, but it's a heavily wooded lot right now, and to build a house this size, that close to the buy down line, It is going to have to be clear cut, and I gotta believe they're gonna have to do some there's gonna be some damage to the trees and stuff on the buy down as well. I don't know how you build this big a house 5 foot from the buy down and not have some.
They're not
damage.
allowed to be on the buy down, period.
Understood, I just don't physically know how you do it. And then finally, and this is the big one, which is if this is a precedent, right? There's gonna be an immediate, I mean, as soon as this house is built, if I were Mr. Fox, I would wanna be in here saying, I wanna build the next house next to it, and I wanna build it just as close to the buy down line, just as far from the street, just as wide, just as big, square foot wise. Otherwise, it's not gonna make any sense. If this house is built as it is, you're gonna have to build the next house just like it on the same property, on the property next door. And I will tell you, I think it will create a spiral of people wanting to do the same thing. You know, we've done work at our house and we've gotten approval to do that work, and we were required to limit what we could do. And we accepted that because we understand that, we're trying to preserve something at the lake. If this project goes forward, everyone's gonna look at it. I think you got a letter from Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler, he had mentioned to me, Mr. Wheeler is another nearby neighbor, and he owns a bunch of property on the lake. And he mentioned, hey, they approved this, it seems like we could do a lot more. We could potentially come forward with a lot more requests in terms of getting closer to the buy down and, variances and in terms of size of house that we potentially could apply for. I do think this will set a precedent that will create a lot more people coming in and asking for the same thing. And, we ourselves would look at this and say, why don't we do more? Why don't we use, because if we have to get out 16 feet in front of us to kind of preserve our views, well, maybe we need to do that. And I don't think that's the kind of spiral you want to start. Next one.
Yeah, if I could just add a couple comments. I think Richard has expressed a lot of we're consistent in our view on this, but I did want to make one point that Mr. Fox made, that he consulted us. We were consulted after the submission. So we had no opportunity to say, this is what would work and against the objections we put in. And I think in good faith, we have come before you. We came in September. We voiced those same concerns, and to go from 1 foot to 5 when we're 21 feet back from the Penelec and every other house within our vicinity is, I think is not a working towards addressing the objections. And the comment about the size of houses, we specifically looked at one that Mr. Fox mentioned last time he was here, which is about 4 lots down.
Right.
That lot that it's built on is about 3 times as big. So, I mean, if you have a big lot, you can build a big house. It's a perfectly fine thing to build a big house and a big lot. A 50% bigger house, bigger lot, which is what they've done, with a 35% bigger house, that's been pushed back another 15 feet so that it can't go, it's still going right up to the Penelec line. 5 feet from the Penelec line is, to me, not addressing the major concerns that I think the ordinance stipulates. So,
Yeah,
not to belabor it and basically say everything Richard said, but I did want to make sure that we think we're reasonable people. We expressed our objections, and frankly, it was a little insulting to get, what do you want here, after it's already been submitted, which is what happened.
Yeah, well, I think the other part of this is, Mr. Fox, approached the attorney, Mr. Heavner, who we had at the last meeting, and said, what would they find acceptable? And we did send an email that said, what we find, what we're looking for is consistency with other houses in the neighborhood, in terms of the buy-down line, or where you are on the buy-down line, and the overall size of the house. Consistency with other houses in the neighborhood. That's sort of, what we think should be the key. And we did put that in an email and send that to Mr. Fox. So I'm not sure where it's coming from, is we got no input from anybody. They got it from us. So I think that was the other thing, that was about it. So we talked about the hardship, we talked about the comparisons. And I, you know, I don't know if there's any other questions for us, but that was sort of our main concerns, and I think they're all documented in the letter. Any questions, concerns?
Anybody, gentlemen?
No, sir.
Okay.
Did your home require any variances or,
I would have, I mean, my home definitely would have required the same variances that Mr. Fox's home would require. And I'm sure that when our home was built at the same time as the house next to us, the tree house, they were both
Right.
built at the same time on a lot that had been subdivided. We bought it originally from the original owners, who actually never lived in it, the
Right.
builders built it. And I'm sure they had a variance, and I'm 100% sure they didn't build as big a house as they wanted, because I think they would have if they could have. You know, the builder was, you know, looking to, you know, this was an economic project, which by the way, this is too. I mean, this is, you know, this is the first of 2 houses that are gonna get built here, right? This is not just a family home, this is a project, this is a real estate project. And the person who built our house, I'm sure would have built a bigger house and could have, potentially, if he could have gotten closer to the Cadillac line.
right,
But when you look at the line of our house compared to the house next to it, compared to the house next to it, compared to the house next to it, it's clear that this board has consistently insisted on that setback. And that, you know, that's just no way after 70 years that you have such consistency unless it's just really been held to that. And I'm sure, I know that we could not have built within the LR1 rules. They couldn't have built our house without a variance, but I'm sure it was limited.
I would say that most of those homes were probably built on grandfathered old cabins that were there, and they had grandfathered setbacks, and that's why they were allowed to be closer to the road. And in the interim, there's been amendments made to the ordinance that allowed for those LR1 lots to, they're non-conforming in that location. And they get some additional, there's actually a section in the ordinance that was introduced years ago that allowed those smaller grandfathered lots some additional relaxed standards, if you will,
Right, yeah,
to make them feasible.
yeah, I think that's the undue, I understand the undue hardship, which is, it is true, if the rules had been enforced as written on our house, it probably could not have been written, you could not have built it.
Right.
But, so they made an exception, we have a, you know, a house that's a certain size, as are most of the other sizes. That to me doesn't seem to be, the undue hardship is, I have to have a 5,400 square foot house. The undue hardship is I can't build anything at all
Right.
that's economically viable. And again, there's a house being built 3 doors down from us that is economically viable to build, that is conforming with all the norms of the neighborhood right now.
But you do have to understand another thing is that probably the homes, those little cabins,
Right.
when homes like yours were being built, were expressing those same concerns of
That,
larger, bulkier.
right, but we weren't extending beyond any house, even houses that were built 50 years ago, we're not extending out beyond those houses. If you look at those pictures, if you look at that, you see the consistency of what was permitted even with newer houses.
You're talking about toward the lake,
Toward the lake, yeah.
but not toward each other or the roadway.
Yeah, pretty consistent. I mean, I was surprised when I saw the survey of, you know, when you look at the whole neighborhood and you kind of pull back and look at all the houses, the consistency of distance to the road, space between each other, I'm sure there's some differences, but it's pretty much the same.
I mean, I think one of the things about March Hill is it's not a very curb appeal neighborhood. I mean, we've had people visit and they're shocked when they actually go in the house because you drive up to the front of it and it's Marsh Hill.
Right.
And you choose it because it's got beautiful lakefront and you're close to the Wisp and to the mountains, so there are a lot of things about it, but curb appeal is not something you're gonna get on March Hill, but pulling something, you know, unless you have a much bigger lot, so.
Right.
Okay.
I think looking at that aerial view, I was kind of amazed at how, you know, the parking situation for all the houses is pretty consistent too, whether they're 5-year-old houses or 50-year-old houses.
Right.
So, we'd like, honestly, I think the big thing is just to be consistent with the norms of the variances that have been allowed over the last 70 years is, I think, our main
Right,
point and point of objection, if it's not.
right. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Did you guys have any other questions for them?
No.
Um,
Do you like to
Yep.
answer any other questions?
Sure. First, thank you guys for the comments. The only thing I can say is I meant the email in good faith. I really did. I meant it when I called your attorney. I meant it when I sent the email. We would have liked to work with you, and we hope to continue to.
Sorry,
So
we didn't get the plans until you had submitted them.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. I feel differently.
Not how I feel.
Sir, it's not, you can see when you submitted it, and when you talked. about
Okay,
it.
you guys have
Uh,
delivered your testimony, and I don't like,
That's fine.
Sorry.
Second of all, I just wanted to note about the lot across the street. The reason I knew the lot is vacant is because, as they noted, we bought that lot. So the lot across the street is vacant, and we own it. So we're certainly not impairing anybody's views across the street. Third, I can appreciate that this home is not the same size as the few homes directly north and directly south, but again, we only went a mile. A mile is only 60 homes, like, that's not that big. And I'm happy to give you guys this list. We have 18 homes that are of an equivalent size. Lastly, many homes in this area of Marshall, or two more points. There are many homes in this area of Marshall Road specifically that don't conform to the current parking ordinance. Many of these homes have to park on the street. Many of these homes don't have the right pull out, so they have to back into the street, which I know creates all sorts of parking, traffic challenges. You know, we're willing to invest the both area and the resources to have all of the off-street parking, and so no car has to back onto Marshall Road. Lastly, the same ordinance that you guys were referencing that it does allow. My understanding is there are 5 homes that are in this same LR1 area that have gone to within 0 feet of the rear line. So we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary that a precedent hasn't already been set for. And I mean, we told our architect wanted to go within 0 feet. We said we had to pull it back. And that was in direct response to your guys' comments. So all I can say is we've really tried. We've really done our best to try to absorb everyone's comments and balancing parking, home, and the size and scope of the lots. We do strongly believe this is consistent with the area. Can I give you guys this list?
Yeah, we'll make it a part of the,
number 3 there, Bruce.
Anything on this? All right.
Okay, that will conclude the public testimony portion of this
Thank you.
case. I've marked those exhibits 1, 2, and 3 pictures.
Okay. Is everybody done with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
You got the balance?
I do.
And you're not making a decision, you don't have to look at those.
Can I look at them?
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Dispose of them.
what's the variance number on this one?
This is number.
VR
VR
814.
814, thank you.
418?
Or 814.
Exhibit 345.
Okay. You want to start with discussion, or we want to start with a motion? All right, maybe a little discussion. We've all lived here, we all know about Marsh Hill Road. There was no zoning ordinance prior to 72, how they were built is how they were built. The last proposal that was presented was unacceptable. I wasn't here for the hearing, but I saw what it was, and I'm glad the decision was made that you guys made at that time. This seems like they've really worked on trying to get something that's feasible. I like the 15-foot side yard setback, the 40 foot from the other side. We're down to 5 feet on the front, which, as pointed out in testimony, we got 5 other houses on that road, and we all know, we've heard those cases where they're down to 0. I think we're gonna find it 50 feet further back down the road, but, this won't be too inconsistent with that. That's my observations. I don't think that I have a major problem with this, but I'm certainly willing to listen to what the rest of you guys have to say.
The 2462 plus 100 is the important number here. I don't think the difference from the rear yard is as important as that. That's why it's in the ordinance, you know. He went through a lot of trouble. If you see, he's designed his house to stay back of that 2462 plus 100, and it comes across there and kind of zigzags across there. I like everything he's done. He's taken those 3 and made 2, and
That was a huge concession.
Huh?
That was a huge concession.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I don't think it's
your point about
unreasonable.
the actual footprint of the house, being 1,200 square feet.
That's, to me, that's why I asked that, because it's the steepness of the lot. It kind of puts a whole other floor on it, kind of makes the square footage go up. It's the footprint, to me, that's more important. That's my opinion. If you're looking at something that's too big, or if you're judging something, he can still do that on that lot and still maintain the overall height requirements that we have. I think he's right on the money.
All right, with that, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
And I'll second.
Any further discussion? Bob, what do you got to say down here?
I'm conflicted because I know it doesn't sound like much, but I do empathize over this 16-foot overlap on the rear line. But I also hear you when you say, not just you, but everybody said, that, and I didn't sit at the last one, but obviously some substantial changes have been made in the planning. And I think that's the right way to go, I really do, so.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
All right.
Any nay? You gonna be voting nay?
Yes.
All righty. Okay, I hit shallow and steep.
Yeah, that's what it is.
the other case withdrawn?
That's why I was told.
So you're packing them, you get, oh boy, oh boy.
I don't think I'm talking about it.
Gentlemen, I do have one, before we adjourn, I have a,
Other items on the agenda that I haven't seen.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you guys. Thank you, Bruce.
you're welcome. Have a good night. Just a past one that was approved. This is your.
This is as-built and it complies.
As requested, yeah, just an as-built.
Going up now.
Is that the one from last time?
Yeah, that's what one.
Yeah, I flew over that, I said, geez, they didn't waste any time.
It didn't take them long to
But
put that up, did it?
approved.
Do you have a moment, or?
Yeah, when I shut down. Just a moment. Here, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Billy's house is on the left.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't look too early.
I think they had that thing pre-built, ready to go, guys.
That's like, how's that, did it, rain put it right up. It didn't take them long at all.
Oh, yeah,
That's some of that hoisting foundation too. Oh, it's a.
You wanna adjourn?
Hemlock puts in.
You
What's
wanna Adjourn.
Motion adjourned? So we're.